Welcome to Judicial Dollars and Cents, brought to you by Anders Virtual CFO Services team from all across the United States. I'm John Scott, and in each episode, we'll shine a light on the financial side of the legal world, turning law firm numbers into impact-driven stories. From taxes and profitability to practice growth and leadership, we sit down with law firm innovators who are shaping the future of the profession. Let's dive in, right here on Judicial Dollars and Cents. Hey, welcome back to Judicial Dollars and Cents, the podcast where we dive into the business side of running a law firm. I'm John Scott with Anders Virtual CFO Services for law firms, and each week we talk with industry experts who help law firm leaders think differently about growth, profitability, and performance so they can build practices that last. Today we welcome Jen Gore. Jen is a lawyer, entrepreneur, investor, and founder of Evergreen Business Coaching, where she advises law firms owners and entrepreneurs on building businesses that are scalable, efficient, and ultimately saleable. Before launching Evergreen, Jen founded and scaled Atlanta Personal Injury Group into a multi-location practice serving clients throughout Atlanta. Under her leadership, the firm achieved remarkable growth, case volume, team size, earning multiple appearances in the Inc. 5000 list of America's fastest growing companies. Jen later became a partner with Sweet James, where she focused on operational excellence, KPI-driven management, intake optimization, marketing performance, and leadership development. Today, she works with law firm owners across the country, helping them build businesses that create enterprise value rather than simply jobs. Jen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I love that your podcast talks about some of my favorite topics.
Well, I think we're aligned in what we do. We just do different things. You coach and I help them run their business, hit cash targets, forecast out into the future. But I would love to hear your origin story. How did you get from high school to where you are today?
I grew up in New York, and I grew up in a family that my parents both, worked for themselves. So I had the luck of being born into an entrepreneurial family, and I wanted to go to business school. I wanted to have my own business. My dad always kind of encouraged me to have my own business, and I wouldn't have probably become a lawyer had a couple things not had happened in my life. I was in my own auto accident where I was pretty badly injured. I had a boyfriend who died in a motorcycle accident. And then I ended up getting a job working as kind of an assistant to an attorney and his family. And I then later got another job working at a gym where my employer stole my identity. And so I had to deal with several legal situations, and I dealt with a lawyer and I worked with a lawyer, and it encouraged me to start a law firm myself. So when I went to law school, I already knew I'm going to open a law firm and it's going to, be a really clear-cut path. So that I think was also an advantage. And I started my law firm the day I got my license.
Was that the Atlanta Personal Injury Law Group?
At the time, it was called the Gore Law Firm. And then within 2 years, I changed the name to Atlanta Personal Injury Law Group.
I love the fact that you changed the name from your name to something that was transferable. All too often, law firms have this identity that belongs to a person, and that's not valuable to the next person that comes in to own that firm.
From a customer perspective, I think if your firm is named the Smith Firm, your customers don't really know what you do.
Exactly. What a great name. So when you launched that firm, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced in the early years?
Getting cases, hiring, learning how to build an intake machine. I mean, all parts of the business had to be built into a systematic business. And at the very beginning, it, was just a lot of me trial by error, doing different things, trying things, throwing ideas at the wall and seeing what stuck.
And you have the entrepreneurial background from the dinner table at home to teach you that. And that's what entrepreneurs have, that innate ability to say, this is what we're going to do. And if it doesn't work, they pivot and try something else. but they're not going to be stuck. Too many accountants and lawyers say, this is what we've always done, whether it's working or not. But entrepreneurs like you and others can say, I'm going to take a risk and try this. And if it succeeds, I'm going to double down. If it's not the right move, I'm going to pivot and do something else.
Yeah, I'm very focused on the result that I'm looking for. So if I have my eye on what is the result, I'm okay to pivot and try different things to get to that result. So if my goal is to sign a certain number of cases, I need to try different things till I can get to my result. And I'm very kind of focused on results.
So from that firm, you went to Sweet James?
So what ended up happening was I went around the country. I was speaking at a lot of events. I was on a lot of podcasts. I started to become like a national brand. I got an opportunity to speak at a large event. And from there, I was going to about 15 conferences a year. I was getting mentored by large firms all over the country. I had a large social media following. I was posting a video every day for 4 years. And so a lot of people knew me, and this firm in California, Sweet James, approached me and said, "Hey, we want to come to Georgia and we want to buy your firm." And my firm really wasn't for sale. I didn't really go out thinking I'm going to sell my firm. At that stage, I was only 40. But in the meantime, in 2023, 2 years prior, I had started Evergreen Business Coaching. So I had a lot of people coming to me saying, "Hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that?" And I had spent a lot of time and money getting my own coaching, going to workshops, learning things. So my coaching was kind of like an amalgamation of all these things I had learned. A lot of the people that were coaching and leading and managing firms in our space, you know, they started a firm 30 years ago and now they're coaching people on how to grow their firm. And I would go to them and I would say, "How do you get to your size?" And they would say, "Well, I went on TV in 1995." And I would say, "Well, if I want to do that today, it's not really the same clear path because, going on TV in 1995, you had a different scenario where people, like the average home, was all watching the same thing. Now we have Netflix, we have all these different things, and the viewership is so fractionalized that like the path to become a top firm in 1995 was like the yellow pages and TV. That's not today." So I would always get frustrated speaking with a lot of these mentors because I would say, "Well, like, what do you do in 2020? How do you become a dominant player in this day and age?" And it was always like, you got to become a digital advertiser. You've got to be able to rank high on Google because when people are looking for lawyers, they're looking online. And so I started to figure out like the path that made a business successful in my industry 20 years ago may not be the same today. So a lot of people would come to me and say, "Your firm is growing. You started it in 2013. I just want to get to your size. Help me, you know, grow my business." So that's kind of how I started coaching people.
So you're so right that how you grow has changed over time, but even currently, digital advertising is different too because people aren't necessarily Google searching anymore, but rather going to ChatGPT, and so you have to have a different set of output to be relevant to ChatGPT as opposed to Google. So what are some of the things that you're helping firms with now to help them grow in a current environment that's AI driven?
So, okay, I do think AI is very important. I'm heavily, heavily involved in AI and I embrace all new technology. I'm a very early adopter on most technology. I try to get as close to a topic as I can if I don't understand it. And AI is evolving very rapidly. With that being said, there are very simple business fundamentals that are going to stand the test of time that don't have anything to do with AI. And you'll appreciate some of this. You need to have a business plan and you need to have a budget. I don't care what AI you're using, you still need those. I lead a business plan workshop every year in Atlanta where I have people come from all over the country. They present their business plan for the year and we Shark Tank style kind of tear it apart. And we find all the holes in the plan. So like one hole might be, well, I want to do $5 million in revenue, but I don't have the inventory to do that. So, or I want to do $5 million in revenue and I don't have the manpower to produce that level of work. And with a contingency business in personal injury, when does the inventory have to be onboarded into the firm to be viable in the budget this year? It's likely not this year. It's last year. So you have to understand the time on desk, how long a case usually takes to turn into cash based on historical data, and you have to be engineering a firm. Now, how we produce that work could be with AI. There's a lot of ways we can incorporate AI into our firm, but at the end of the day, you need a viable business plan and a budget.
I love the fact that you stress test those budgets, because too many firms will just say, I want to grow 20% and have no impact on the bottom line other than it going up. But then you look back and you don't have the case volume, you don't have the people to do it. And so we call it dynamic forecasting, similar to your budget, but we want to look at it on a monthly basis as the year goes on and look at what levers do we need to pull to ensure that we're going to hit or exceed our goal. Because too many firms will set the budget in November of the year before, and they'll pull it out in the fall and they go, what happened? When in reality, what happened in January, February, and March, and you didn't pivot.
Correct.
And if you make those pivots,
that is required in business. A lot of times we need to do a mid-year check-in. But what I see a lot of people, they may come to you with a budget, but they don't actually have any thought process on what the hell we're building. What are we building? Why are we building it? I push people. Why do we need to build a $10 million law firm? What about it is going to, drive you? The first question I ask everyone we're working as is what are we building? Because you can take 10 people and we're building completely different law firms. And so my mission is to encourage people to build a law firm that serves them personally, professionally, and financially. And that we build a culture, that we build systems. We have marketing systems. We have intake systems. We have production systems, financial systems, hiring systems. And then really the wild card in any business is the owner's leadership, mindset, risk tolerance, and vision. And so we have to kind of work on all 7 parts of the business year round to be able to execute a business plan that, is attainable year on year.
I love that holistic approach, because you're absolutely correct. A buyer coming in to a place that has great financials, that are clean, that tell a great story, and they have systems in every other component of the business that are documented and followed, they're going to pay a premium for that. Whereas if they're coming into a mess where all the partners do something different, they're going to pay a discount for that firm.
Let me tell you something interesting that comes to mind since you're in the financial arena. When I sold my law firm, I had a fractional CFO. And if I had not had that, my life would have been hell. Because when we went through the merger, some of the people in my financial department within the firm were let go. And having a fractional CFO, which is an outside third-party neutral, really saved me hundreds of thousands of dollars, because we had to do a lot of historical data mapping, and we needed this third-party neutral to kind of show different issues. Winding down a firm and selling a firm is very financially complex. And I thank God that I had the foresight and the wherewithal to have an outside CFO. And everybody that doesn't have that, well, number one, I think having them audit your inside your firm financial people is so critical. I'm sure you've run into this. It's fraud prevention. But in addition to that, there's just so many financial elements that come up during the sale of a law firm. And if you don't have a neutral person involved in it, it becomes a he said, she said situation.
Well, thank you for the testimonial about outsourcing the finance function, because I couldn't agree more. When we take on a project, and even throughout, we document all the processes, we offer up best practices. You don't have to take our suggestions, but we might say, hey, look, we can automate the bank feed. And right now, people are fat fingering and making mistakes. We can repurpose what your internal people are doing by automating a few things. And we're also that oversight, that separation of duties, that we do the reconciliations. You can strengthen your internal controls, get better data, and you can sleep at night. We also help you set cash targets to know how much cash to keep on hand. And that is a real struggle with attorneys, because they see money in the operating account and they say, oh, I want to take a distribution. When in reality, payroll and rent are due in the next 2 weeks. And so we have rules of thumb that we try and work with them between 10 and 30% of expected revenue. And we hit these cash targets that we're like, hey, when we hit our target, and in a growing firm, that target keeps going up. But when we hit that target, the next dollar that's in that operating account is available for distribution. But we have to have some discipline to build to that target so that we can fund that growth. Or if we're a lifestyle firm, we have to be able to say, how much do I have to have in this business to run it? And then what's available for distribution after I hit that target.
I love the concept that you just described, which was lifestyle firm. Can you go into that more since this is your expertise?
Not everyone wants to grow and scale a business to sell it. You know, Many firms don't sell to outside people, and really, estate planning firms and PI firms are very saleable. The hourly billing firm that does any sort of consulting on an hourly basis that has the name of the partners in the firm is mostly transferable to internal younger people that are coming up. So there's not really an ability to sell that to another law firm. But there's a lot of firms out there that just want to keep doing what they're doing, and we can still help on an external basis by making them incrementally better, by managing cost, encouraging them to raise rates, be more efficient, investing in technology. And so they can make a little bit more and not upset the apple cart. I've got a firm in Texas that does a unique piece of law, and they're very much a lifestyle firm. Their charge hour expectations are much lower than you would expect. And we pushed and probed a little bit in that area, and they said, no, 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 we don't want to upset the culture. So we realize their culture, and we just suggest things that will help enhance what they do. We're not going to push them to say, hey, you guys are a good sized law firm, let's charge more time. That's just not what they're about. That's not who they hire. That's not their culture. And we're never going to change that. We don't want to.
I get that. I just think that goes back to my original question is like everyone's building something different and you have to be careful the advice you take from different people because if we're sailing to Jamaica or we're sailing to London, it's completely different ways to get there.
And it could be very fun on the journey. It's the journey, not the destination sometimes. But you're right.
So
In
true.
what you and I do, we see so many different firms, different goals and desires, and different cultures. And the beauty of it is we can adapt and say, hey, this doesn't work in this environment, but this does. And we know that there's 15 different ways to do the same thing. Whereas if you've only ever been in one firm, that's the only way you know how to do it.
So true.
So let's talk about when you come into a new project and you're going to coach a new firm. What are some of the first things you analyze to diagnose what's going on and how you can help?
So I want all the law firm owners to operate their firm like with a dashboard and I test them constantly. I was just on a call an hour ago with a law firm in California and I say, okay, we're getting on the call. I want to know how many leads have come in the firm this month, how many were qualified, how many were signed. I want to test how much they know that and how close they are to that data. I want to know how many, different files were produced. So if it's personal injury, how many demands were sent, how many litigation cases were filed. And then I want to know what the cash position is. How much did we settle? How much did we collect? And what is the, revenue situation? So you have to constantly have your eyes and ears on intake and marketing, production, and finances as the owner. And so I'm kind of testing them. And the problem is many of them don't have access to this information, or they get it the next month. And the problem is you need this data in real time, because if it's the midpoint of the month, today's, let's say the 15th, and we're seeing that all of our metrics are completely off track, we have to start sounding alarms and deploying things to get back on track within the month. And if you're looking at this data as a historical record, rather than looking at this data from a position of, I need to take action to change what's going on, then your firm is going to be a roller coaster.
I love the fact that you want them to have current data, because you're so right. Waiting 6 weeks to decide that last month sucked doesn't help anybody. You have to be able to know what those things are. What's a good close rate in your experience for intake calls that turn into client matters?
So you want to have a 90 to 94% gold standard close rate on qualified leads. So that means if 100 people call, you want to be signing 94, 95 of them, right? But where I see a lot of people lost is that they don't even understand how many qualified leads. So if I say to somebody, hey, how many cases did you sign up? And they say, I signed up 20. I don't know whether that's good or bad. Now, if you tell me you signed up 20 and we had a goal of 20, okay, that's a little closer. It sounds like we're on target. But if you tell me you had 20 and you signed up 20, but you had 30 that were qualified, that means we missed 10. So we need to have data in context, and we need to understand, do we have a marketing problem or do we have an intake problem? If we have a marketing problem, means we don't have enough qualified leads. If we have an intake problem, that means we don't have enough conversions. We can't get the people that are calling to convert. And sometimes we have a marketing and an intake problem, and that's where people get very confused.
So how do you train up? Because if the qualified leads are there, it's not a marketing issue. If it's a conversion issue, how do you audit what's going on and train that intake process to be better?
So first of all, a lot of people are struggling in just capturing that information. If I could say the biggest challenge I see is that people don't have that data. So they don't have an intake system. They don't have an actual data set to look at this. People are storing inbound calls on scraps of paper, Excel sheets, all these different things. That is not an intake system. We need to build a world-class intake system where when the phone rings, the data comes in and it lands on a dashboard like a call center. And as that goes on, we can go through and track and run reports on what happened with all the calls in the firm throughout the day. And that's a whole process and project that I help many law firms set up. And that's the work that I did with the firm that I sold my firm to. I helped them revamp their entire intake system. And just getting a handle on that, if you could do that, you're in the 5 to 10% of law firms in the country.
I'm going to tell you a quick war story about intake. I had a firm that came to us because work had fallen off the table. It was a hourly billing firm. They did some fixed fee work, but new calls, new clients had just dropped off. And it was 6 weeks in when they called, and we didn't figure this out, but it came to light quickly after we got involved that there was an online intake flowchart that new clients would fill out. And at the bottom of it, regardless of how you filled it out, it referred you to another attorney that you weren't a good fit for the firm. And the only way they
Wow.
found out was one of the other attorneys that was being referred called to thank them for all the referrals they were getting. And it was just
Yeah,
a
that's
bust in how the
broken
flowchart was
system.
set up. Yeah.
Broken system.
It's been fixed and things are on the right track, but it was unfortunate 6 weeks. Hey, before we wrap up, I want to talk about, you and I talked before about your fitness regimen and how you're into different things for fitness. And I too have hired a personal trainer and have been on a fitness journey for the last couple of years, because I'm really trying to, I'm preparing to be older. Okay. And it's a tough struggle, but following the metrics, or your macros rather, how do you hit your protein goals on a regular basis it's tough. I mean, my target is 200 grams of protein a day and 2,000 calories. It's doable, but it's tough. What's your go-to source of protein every day?
Listen, I believe in striving. I'm not where I would love to be. I think every level of a fitness journey, there's like that next level. You think you get somewhere, and there's like the next level. Um, I'm also striving to get as much protein as possible. I think you need to have quick, easy ways to get protein, in addition to eating whole meals. So, like right now, I'm eating my cottage cheese. I have a protein bar, I have a protein shake. For me, that has been a way I've been able to tide over some of that. But, you know, if you are not intentional, you're not going to get there. Now, um, I was sharing with you that I was vegetarian for many years, and being vegetarian was really hard on my system. And I realized like I had to make a change, and there was only so many different ways you can eat vegetable protein. But yeah, it's interesting, like all the things that I'm studying now and the information that's out there. It can be very overwhelming, and sometimes the information is all not lining up as the same, right? So you talk to 3 different people and everyone tells you something different on health.
Well, my go-to protein in the morning is the Greek yogurt, 0% fat, which is good. And cottage cheese is great too. And then mixing in some protein powder. I can get 70 grams of protein. It's palatable. It's good. But then, the rest of the day trying to get to that 200 is tough, but it's doable. I applaud your efforts on that. And I want to age gracefully, live to about 88 on my own at a high level, and want my wife to do the same and die within a month of each other, and I'll be fine. Hey, how's a way someone can get a hold of you if they want to engage you to do coaching?
They can contact me at Jennifer at Evergreen Biz Coaching. So it's .com. It's EVER Green, GREENBIZ coaching.com. And they can also find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Jen Gore Lawyer. I post a lot of content. I try to give out value every single day. So I'm pretty easy to find on the internet.
All right. Well, Jen, thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in to Judicial Dollars and Cents. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us grow and ensures you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time on Judicial Dollars and Cents. Thanks for joining us on Judicial Dollars and Cents, presented by Anders Virtual CFO Services. If you found value in today's conversation, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. To learn more about how Anders helps law firms strengthen their financial foundations and drive growth, visit anderscpa.com. Until next time, keep making smart decisions that make perfect sense.